process to it, but I'm hoping.
All right. Well, it's recording now. I thought
Okay.
I enabled local recordings. I don't know if anything popped up for you to do that, but that does fancier versions.
I just see
Welcome,
recording.
everybody. It's
There
Grim
we go.
Grizz and the Zach Parsons Project. This is what I call a fringe encounter because we don't really know each other. Usually, I haven't met anybody at all, but we have special circumstances. Um, I know you first from a comment, as I recall, and then I heard you made the guy who never kicked out my documentary on me to Justin Wells his own brand of coffee, and
Yes.
but we met first at the Pacific Estuary Northwest over coffee,
Yeah.
where I saw you carrying around a Coke product and was concerned about your health and well-being.
Yeah. It was Coke Zero, I think, if we want to get right down to it. And I think there were concerns about aspartame, perhaps, in
Yeah,
there.
that's ancient from our age. It's
Yeah.
it's definitely a new chemical these days. I'm sure it's safe and effective.
Yeah, I think I just needed the bubbles. If I could have had a sparkling water, actually, you know what? Look at that product placement. I got some sparkling bubbles right here. It's probably the same, only carbonated water and natural essence. Oh,
Yeah, sell that to a Plains Indian.
that's.
The water's better if you carbonate it. It's better for you,
I think that's
sure.
true. I think that's
It
accurate.
doesn't make your bones weak. Eh?
No, no, I remember because we seem to be on like the same sort of coffee refill schedule. Like every time we would go back to get a refreshment, we'd be uh, running into each other. Then, fortunately or unfortunately, we were not on the same urination schedule because I think that was probably the tightest three-person bathroom I have ever seen.
I, I was on a. I have a similar bladder to Michael Martin, and
Okay,
it seems
he was your pee buddy.
that was the Estuary Encounter Northwest
There
side by
were
side.
there were a lot of urinary encounters in that bathroom. I mean, it was tight.
That was good times. Good times. Why did you go to that thing?
Yeah, yeah, okay. So the whole Paul Vanderklay world, his corner of the internet, was always something that drew me in on the internet. And then I would hear him talking about estuary, and didn't I mean I'd hear him talking about you. Like he just, throw these sort of terms and words and people out there. It took me a while to realize that you were a person, but I eventually did, and a genius. Remember that? It's like, this guy's a genius. I was like, okay, all right, let's.
He does promote me nicely.
And so anyway, but regarding estuary, once I kind of understood that it was an in-person thing and started investigating it further, it seemed interesting to me. And then I feel like I got pulled further into the TLC around the time of Jordan Hall's conversion, and understood that estuary was an in-person thing, and realized you could kind of create your own if you wanted to follow the protocol. And so started a couple estuaries in my community in Indiana, or I guess started one and it's grown into two. And I was like, I probably would benefit from, going to the mothership and seeing how Paul, and I thought John Von Donk would be there as well, and just others. And so some of these faces that I'd seen on screens is like, let's see what they're like in person, in real life, at the urinal.
At the urinal. And how was that for you? All these. So you're familiar. You were familiar with me and Paul. Who else in the corner did you know before? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
well, you know people.
Chad and I connected around the same time, and we've had a few phone calls, and I've been on his channel. He does his not estuary thing online, and Chad's just a great guy. We hit it off. I'd never met Luke before, but I like watching Luke's videos. I think he's hilarious. Christian Baxter was one who was not there, but he and I have connected a couple times. He was on my channel and I was on his. And then Justin Justin Wells, he wasn't there, but trying to think. Other than that, I don't have a
So
ton.
Karen and Grail Country, the rest of Grail Country was all foreign to you.
It just more fringe, to use your parlance, folks that I had maybe some awareness of, but not enough, not enough.
And
I recognize Nate, like I saw Nate's, face a lot of places, but I didn't know him as well as some of those other folks.
is that are you used to micro celebrities, or was that a new thing? And did you
Uh,
feel like one?
that's a good question. I do not feel like one, but I definitely feel like I have shifted into some sort of, um, hey, like listening to you. I like talking to you. I would like to see you in person. Like I've gone to 2 Jordan Peterson live events.
You didn't get you didn't get the recognition of people knew you from your channel that you had a boat in
Oh,
the flotilla.
no. I don't. No, no. I don't think any. I don't think anybody
I
knew.
did. Yeah, I did.
Well, yeah, because we're a little YouTube pet. Well, but like I said, think of the people that that I mentioned. All those people have their own sort of YouTube channels. So maybe we have a nose for our own.
Hmm?
And I don't know, were there folks, because you had been to some in-person things already, right?
Yeah, Chino, the Denim Dinner, and the Peugeot event.
And the denim dinner was with Chad, right?
Yeah,
That
up in
was
Wisconsin. It was
right,
an
yeah.
estuary. We did a dinner and then an estuary with like 12 people, but it was like Weeks was there, and
Oh, yeah. And like some of these folks I've had a little, Twitter conversation back and forth with, and
all the different planes of existence we can run into people. And then it's nice to know that the physical one is one and they're
yeah,
not
no,
combined.
I actually I did love it and took a lot from that, and a lot of those relationships seem like they're actually more real now, maybe. Um, and I've found in my experience that sometimes it's the second time, it's like the reunion once you've had the first encounter, to where things get much deeper. So whether I'm building up a closeness or an intimacy in my head, or something's actually happening, I'd expect you and I would be able to have a nice long conversation in person. Yeah, assuming this goes well. But I guess
Right,
it's kind of
right.
what we're doing right now.
Um, what? Why did you do the channel?
Hmm. So I had my wife and I started coffee shop about 8 years ago, and then it's expanded a few different times. We added a second location in 2019, and then once we kind of survived the COVID moment, um, we kind of realized, okay, maybe we've got something here, and so we grew into a third location, and then 2023 a fourth location, all in our community. And it was like, okay, that this took a lot out of us, took a lot out of me, and I needed something different to focus on. And I was formerly a pastor, and I have like that
Why'd you quit?
well, I had a couple of church splits early on, actually. Like the first church I worked at had a church split, and it was just really messy to be on the inside of.
Oh yeah.
And the business model of it is such to where if you don't have as many customers, let's be cynical here, if you don't have customers who are helping to contribute to the budget, to the bottom line, you're going to have to make some cuts. And so my position was eliminated at the first church that I worked at, and then the second church had a kind of a similar thing but less dramatic, and I was like, maybe this isn't for
This
me.
is Zach the Schism Maker.
Yeah. Oh, that could be that too. Could be that too. And so then that what's that saying, like never trust a man whose salary depends on him believing something, or something like that. So once my vocation was sort of like separated from my faith, I had a little more freedom to kind of explore, like, do I really believe all these things, and how do I make sense of turmoil that I just experienced among, God's holy people who are connected to, the same God. And yeah, my faith just sort of started to kind of whittle away and break away until one day I kind of woke up. I mean, there's a lot of other details I could go into about it, but I just said, well, why not atheism? Like, what if my prayers that I don't seem to understand how it works, what if they're not going anywhere? What if there is no God? And then this was probably back in 2010. And I remember oh, I got a hood. I can do it again. There we go. It was like, I put on this hood of atheism, and it wouldn't come off. And the problem of evil, I think, was a big part of that for me. And so all of a sudden I was like, oh wait, maybe there's evil in the world because we're evil and there's no one to stop it but us. And it actually kind of empowered me to be a little more active in my community and in my life. And so wore that sort of atheist cloak for a number of years. And then missed a lot of the community aspects of church. Didn't find a lot of life in the atheist church or atheist social kind of expressions that I found.
Where does this coincide with the launch of the coffee shop?
Let's see. So the coffee shop was 2016, and it was a different spouse as well. So I also got divorced from my first wife, the mother of my kids. And so kind of had to rebuild my whole life. And that
But
was
like the atheism missing community versus the launch of the coffee shop.
Yeah. No, that's you're right. So whatever the coffee shop itch that I was trying to scratch that energy sort of went into the coffee shop. And it wasn't like a Christian coffee shop. My wife is a Christian, but it wasn't anything explicit. It was like, hey, common grounds, for discussions about Jesus or something like that. Like it was nothing that explicit. Oh yeah, there's so many coffee shops named Common Grounds, and there's even coffee shops that do launch like inside of a church or with a church, affiliation of some sort.
And for those people listening on the road right now, happening to be driving by, what city area state?
Evansville, Indiana.
If you're on your way on the road, on your way by Evansville, Indiana, stop in by the
Honeymoon Coffee Company.
And and check. I actually did more research than I usually do, and I've found this on your channel. From your trailer number 2, and I really like how this location had the dead guy.
Oh, yes.
The history, the little perm things behind you, those are great. But ladies and gentlemen, this is the location, at least one of, that we're talking about.
Yeah. That sounds interesting to you. I hope that you'll subscribe and stick along for the ride. And without further ado, I'd love to show you the newest location of the Honeymoon Coffee Company and the roastery at the Evansville Coffee Company. All right, let's take a look.
Well, I can allow that. I gotta say, I missed the nose cam from trailer number 1.
It's a good one. My wife also said that the picture that I had on the wall was distracting and it looked like crap. Said to frame it, so I did. All right, first thing, we'll get through my magical bead curtains. You guys are gonna think I'm some kind of a hippie. You see customers busy working. Called that the West Wing. Here's the espresso bar, and you can see back in the back the roastery area. I don't know if I have a future in vlogging.
But look at this location. You have this fancy roasting process on display. I'm wondering if what if you convert that to where you do the podcast?
Inside the roastery instead of my little office there,
so people can see it on the window, like they can walk by and see the podcast, the famous person you're talking to, and be close to them and feel their essence. Live streams a lot, and then rent that space to other YouTube podcasters.
Oh yeah, we've got a number of them in Evansville, Indiana. It's a mecca for micro celebrities.
See, it's this notion. See, once upon a time, there was a vision. It was called the vision of the Fringe Nexus Cafe.
Oh,
It's like a long desert highway leading to a hop's vibration visually in the sky, which might or might not be the singularity. But on the side of the road, on the way there, is this diner. And I saw Pastor Paul Vanderklay at the door of the diner with the shotgun, ushering people in to this thing. And it's got named the Fringe Nexus Cafe. And it'd be like your your little booth there could be a physical instantiation for internet people to collide and make a physical, and
ooh.
that's
Now that word collide. Wow. Okay. Now we got something spooky here. So when we first had the idea for the coffee shop, I went to like a startup weekend. You ever heard of startup weekend? It's like a entrepreneur. It's like, all right, you've got to come up with an idea, pitch it to a panel, gather a bunch of people to help you with it, and you can win a prize. I don't know, free year of web domain hosting or something.
it's like think for us.
Yeah.
We'll pick
The
one.
the the idea that I came up with, the name of the coffee shop was the Collide Coffee Shop in our community. It's going to be like on Main Street, and it was like that was the thing that was supposed to happen. There was people were supposed to be able to collide. Then my wife wanted to do something different and had a different name, and
You
the rest
agreed
is
to her
history.
decisions.
Yeah. Well, that's a beautiful thing. So wait, now have you? I'm sure you already have. Can you give me the whatever version you want to give me of why you started the channel?
I started a different channel. I saw this guy. This guy did this show called Lift the Veil on
Mm,
YouTube, and then he did his backstage prep for that show on Twitch,
mm,
and it was a truther thing, like looking into mysterious bus crashes and the other side of the news, questioning
mm.
the narrative. And he had a cat on a tree behind him, and people gave him money to do it. And I saw the career opportunity when I had bothered him so much in his chat that he said, we could get you a handler in like 6 months. You could start your own channel. And so I started my own channel. And then some interesting things happened. And I ended up trying to run community for a different channel in the first Peterson wave called
Mm,
Sorting Myself Out,
mm.
where the bald guy had handed off to another bald guy and a redheaded kid. But like being in the truther community, I got the whole virtually not alone notion that like the reason we liked people were watching these shows is because the people that were showing up were in that chat were the same people that were showing up in another chat. And once the people in the chat started seeing each other and making things for each other, I don't know, like Paul's closing videos with branding Raquel made for me.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's it turned into that. I mean, I had a separation with that channel and went my own way. And ta-da, my own way. It's live streams on the internet with savings throws against mind control. Do you know how those go?
I have seen it and I feel like I understand it a little bit, but I'm excited and rooting for a 10.
All right. Well, first, let me explain that. Like, even the commercial, even you drinking that beautiful Lacroix water with the sparkle bubbles in it, is a form of influence and mind control over everybody who sees it, and
Mm,
that's the mind control, the swimming in it nature that I give the savings throws against. To get one, you
mm.
have to make a choice between survival, social, wisdom, or heart as the basis for your resistance to that mind control. If the die you chose, I roll a 10 or higher, you've made your savings throw and only take half damage from the LaCroix. Survival, social, wisdom, or heart.
I got it.
Choose.
Do you want me to tell you or keep it locked in?
You can keep it locked in, but choose.
Okay, got it.
Now tell me.
Social.
Survivalists got Baker's Coven, that's a 13. Socialists with a 9. With a 9. If you had told us in the Hive Mind chat, you'd have a +2, but we're getting through to you. But don't worry, the Wisdom folks are even worse. That's a 4. We're getting through to them. Hard folks, a 5.
Oh wow.
Everybody's going to need their bonuses, but you can get bonuses by like, sharing, and subscribing. Indigo Kids pairing it up with a 4 as well. That's how that goes.
Did you create that? Is that something that is your own invention?
Well, you see, if you're running a live stream, what you like is hive mind chat activity.
Sure.
And if you present the hive mind with the choice and they will make that choice, they will tell the other people in the hive mind what choice they made, which encourages the chat bubble to be like, oh, YouTube's look, he's got active chatters in that live stream. Let's show it to other people.
Play the game.
So, and it's it's useful. It's useful. Steven, somebody from the hive mind who's been around on channels now, happened to have a list of saints that coordinated with that number of die. No, wait, it's the cards he loves. Shut up. It is the cards. It is the cards. But he had a dice thing too, back in the way back. But yeah, it's
Well, I feel like I started to go down a road, and then I asked you to go down a road, and our roads seemed to converge a little bit on Jordan Peterson. I'm wondering if the timing of that convergence was the same or not. When did Jordan Peterson become a person on your radar?
I had a mysterious friend from England who had been to Dubai, who sent me on Telegram his Maps of Meaning 9 lecture, like probably 2 months before the Suspensor incident. And so I got into him because like the level of the courses of people who dealt with people with mental problems. What I was like, if I can learn what those people know, I'll probably be better at fixing myself than because like whenever I had sought professional help before, she was like affirmations. And I had seen Saturday Night Live and Stuart Smalley,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to incorporate somebody who's like Stuart Smalley into my identity structure at all, and thought the recommendation was foolish. But where did that come from? Go to?
Oh yeah, just so timing wise, so that would that be 2016, 2017?
I think the suspender incident was in 17.
Yeah,
I wouldn't swear to it.
that sounds about the same as
The deck card of the show is the 8 of Hearts, and that's a saint that Steven will show in the chat.
is that a good omen so far?
They're all saints, so it can't not be.
You can't miss.
But sometimes the jokers come out.
Oh yeah. No, that would be.
And those are based off Deadlands, which is a tabletop RPG where you play poker with demons to get magic powers. It's a good time until you get a black joker.
So the Peterson thing, I'm assuming that eventually led you to Paul.
I was around. I followed Owen Benjamin away from Peterson and learned a whole lot about live streaming and such, as well as a lot of fun conspiracies. His flat earther period was magic.
That you had a flat earther period, or he did?
I don't know what this realm is, and I'm not siding. I'm agnostic. I'm realm agnostic. It's fun to look at.
Well, can I ask you said the A word, one of the A words. Do you have a spiritual identification that you have at this point? Because so part of my like Zach Parsons projects kinds of thing is I project things onto you or everybody, the meaning making that I'm doing, and you can disabuse me of my incorrect projections. So I understand that you are an agnostic. That's my projection onto you. Is that a title that you would embrace, or what? Can you disabuse me of that projection?
Well, I'll define it. Like, I was always agnostic because I thought everybody else was a liar.
Mm.
Because it meant I don't know, and everybody choosing a side didn't know. And so saying they were this or that, they were lying. And being an atheist was on the other side. Like, you can't. If you're prone towards suicidal ideation, atheism is not the way to go.
Mm.
As it removes a lot of justifications for not doing it. So that was a life and death struggle. I got into it with the internet atheists for a while. They believe in they have a whole lot of faith in their evidentiary scrutiny of evidence. But no, where point me again.
Is that something that you I
Oh wait,
feel
I'm
like you're
agnostic. Right.
yeah,
And
yeah.
now I lean harder into the gnosis part of agnostic.
Okay.
So like if you've been to a Pentecostal church and God took hold of your tongue, then you've experienced gnosis and
Okay.
you can't be agnostic. Um, or like if you once you have a divine experience, it's close enough to a thing called gnosis that you
Mm.
can't be agnostic anymore. Until then, you're I don't know LARPing.
Mm. Oh, that's a great word. So you said gnosis, or so would you call yourself a Gnostic?
No, I'm agnostic still.
Still agnostic, but
Although
you've
I have
experienced.
encountered the shining darkness on a
Mm.
mushroom trip, like Papa Peterson.
Mm.
Um, he wrote that's when he came out with that song. That was right after his mushroom trip, which is fascinating.
Really?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
actually explains it. Okay, I don't know why I didn't connect those dots, because that explains that. That was a fascinating video. Are we thinking of the same video?
Well, we have the power of this thing called this-little-corner.com right now, and yes.
It
So,
has to be this. It was right before the ARC conference, I want to say.
oh no, it was well before the art
Oh,
conference.
was okay. So we're thinking of two different
Probably
things.
9 months maybe, but it was fascinating to me that he decided to talk to Dawkins about what he saw on his mushroom trip.
Yes.
That's art. That's the art of it right there. Yeah, see, there's this video on my channel from February 23rd of 2022 called Papa Peterson's Black Sun Song, which is where oh God, it's playing but not in the screen I can see. Stop it, do this. There it is. Yes. Oh, my mic's hot. Seeds you've sown, what you will be. I should. I cared less of the quality back then. But we watched it
I don't know
closely.
that song. All right, so you've given me some homework. No, I was thinking of like the drinking song video
Oh,
where
no. Oh, yeah, that was later. That was,
yeah,
he got
okay.
I'm going to explore, I don't know, political memology warfare
Mm,
for a while. That was fun, but not
yeah.
his game.
Well, and Paul Antleitner, it's always fun to reference things that like just came out, because I don't know when you're gonna release this or when
Well,
I'm gonna release.
I'm glad you brought him up because like you were a him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I
Is
saw
it the
you at
beard?
like I don't know why, but like whatever yeah, you gave me like he's one of those vibes.
Mm.
You don't anymore, but like that was the the category you fell in on entry.
Well, that's good. We can we can talk about that. So he, I think, is a pastor. If I've got my Paul Antlighter Wikipedia, pulled up the right way. So he just released a show about psychedelics, like a panel discussion about psychedelics, and that is where you were just sort of opening things up to where, for you, it created an experience of nosis. And
As
I've had
close as I'd call it.
sure,
I mean,
sure,
I don't know. No, I wouldn't call it. I'm still agnostic.
yeah,
But
yeah.
that's as close to anything I would point to as gnosis.
The panelists were all, I only got to around to two of them so far, but they all had pretty significant psychedelics as part of their identity and kind of ritualistic practices, whereas mine have been much more one-offs, with like some caution of seeing people fall into those holes, and it can be a reality.
Well, let's look at that.
Hmm.
Because when I started my journey, I was presented on the same day with two paths. And the second one was this Baba Wanyama fella.
Okay, not familiar.
He's got weird eyes. And he talks about aliens and stuff sometimes. But his major claim is that when Jim Carrey went on Norm Macdonald talking about the sacred secretion, that it's an actual physiological thing that happens in our body, involving our cerebral spinal fluid, coming from our brain into our CSF, going all the way down, and then coming all the way back. And if we don't screw it up by living riotously, um, then it'll squirt over our pineal gland, and we'll see the face of God, like Jacob saw the face of God and called the place Peniel.
Mm.
And as I've been able to actually follow the way, which they say Jesus is the way and the
Sure.
truth and the life, and if he's
Yeah.
the way, then maybe what he did is how we follow the way. And he fasted for 40 days
Mm.
to like crucify his flesh and elevate his spirit or something. And if we can't do that, are we really followers of Christ? And
Sure.
maybe that's why we're not praying in the new tongue or casting out demons, the greater things he said we do.
Mm.
And if you said things like verily, verily, which seems to be like, hey, I'm making a point here.
Yeah.
That if you had the faith of a mustard seed, that mountain would get up and move. Then maybe the things we have faith in that aren't about moving mountains, but like about how the way the world works, maybe they help make the world work the way it works.
Mm.
So
Absolutely.
that's whatever faith that is, whatever brand of Christianity or unchristian, whatever label denomination that is what I am.
The follower of the way.
No, the guy unable to fast and follower of the
Oh,
thinks that fasting is following the way. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
so have you, is fasting something that you have practiced, or
I've well, unless you count things you smoke as part of fasting, I've almost made 3 days once, and the second day I felt the best I ever had in my life. So,
Mm.
and yet,
It
but
didn't go all the way to 3.
when ye fast, because you're
Right.
gonna do it, obviously. So when you do it, don't make a big deal about it on YouTube or anything.
But I'm asking you. So it's okay. Yeah, interestingly, well, and I'm fine. I'm not making a big deal about it, but since you brought it up, it's like that is the thing that makes more sense to me to try to experience and participate in a way, rather than that propositional level of, do you believe this, that, and the other. It's more like, okay, here's an invitation to participate in a way of the spirit, and some of it's social, some of it's other people love one another, and then some of it's more private or individual.
In your closet where you're supposed to pray.
Yeah. So that
I was
that
I
that
was what
resonates.
I was what you'd call one of those red letters only
Yeah.
Christians. Like the only part of the Bible I have any interest in is the parts that they attribute to Jesus saying, because if he is God's son, that's the only part that they'd be sure to have right.
Mm.
So,
I
um,
uh I just discovered I don't even know if it's a sect. It's at least a YouTube movement of people who are very adamant about kind of juxtaposing Jesus's gospel and Paul's gospel, and just that what what we find ourselves with 2,000 years later um, is Paul's Christianity or Paulianity versus
I like Pauline Christianity.
Pauline.
Yeah.
Yeah, they take the Christ part out of that whole thing and just call it Paulianity. Sounds too much like
Well,
Pollyanna.
it's like they're trying to be controversial to drive clicks and views.
Well, and there's that part of it. So you asked me, and I don't know if I fully answered it, why I created the channel, but like I don't have a Patreon. I don't even know if I want to talk about like my business of like, hey, buy a cup of coffee. Um, there's part of me that wonders if that would be helpful, but when I talked to Justin, that made sense. It was like, okay, so Justin, you actually have coffee as part of your brand. But his main mission is all about storytelling and teaching people about storytelling and sharing this, even without a lot of, or maybe any sort of commercial, like he's got a day job. He's got a thing that, pays his bills. And he's like, I just want to share this storytelling thing because I love it. And so we've created this coffee product that just allows it to be a little more participatory for other people who want to drink a coffee that he created, and kind of share in his daily coffee journey as well, that supports the larger storytelling mission.
Well, I'm pretty sure most of the viewers are on board with the approved stimulant of our society, and I think that you've got a lot of opportunities that there could be a Vander brand.
And if Paul wanted to do something like that, like I'd be totally down for it. But I feel like I have a little bit of an allergy towards some of that. Like even some of the stuff with Peterson, or even Vervaeke, even Peugeot. Like everyone's got their little bit of like, hey, listen to my ad, hey, buy my course. And I don't know if you can totally get away from all that. I haven't decided where I need to land on all that. But we've all experienced listening to a Peterson, conversation, and then all of a sudden the most obnoxious, commercial in the world comes up that's
That washes out the good point because they
yeah.
always put it right after the good point. Yeah, it's I lean into it just because
Yeah.
there's the level, like the internet is for everybody, which means people who have never been on it before and might, like, if you come in naive and trusting, then I'm the best place for you to be as far as like not getting grifted wrong,
Yeah.
because this place is full of them. So
But I
it's
think I think what makes your grift work is that you acknowledge it as a grift. Like that's part, like if
I'm trying to make a living here,
yeah,
folks. This is
if
what I do.
and Peterson has said that sometimes. He's like, hey, you know what? These Daily Wire people, they give me carte blanche. And you know what? They give me some pretty nice equipment and a team to create high
And
quality
the
videos.
legal team.
Yeah, sure.
That's it. The corporations come with the legal team. That's very nice.
He's figured it out. And he got rid of his, day job, or his day job got rid of him, I guess. And so he's got to figure something out. Whereas, Vervaeke, to my understanding, still, he still teaches.
Well,
So is he
society
staying away
wise,
from that? Who knows?
like I see the collapse of the ivory tower of academia. I mean, it got infiltrated and corrupted with the worship of a day, an opus day. And Peterson is doing the thing that he's stealing it. He's stealing the valuable things, which is what those people are teaching. And I don't know when it falls into the hands of the plebes what's going to happen, but everything seems to be falling in the hands of the plebes. Um,
I'm okay with that.
it's I don't know. We live in very interesting times. If we were born into like in Game of Thrones terms, the children of the summer, like who had we had never seen winter as
Mm,
Americans in our generation. Like you're like 2 years behind me, I think. So
yeah. I'm 44.
oh, three then. I just had a birthday party. Shame you missed it. That was epic. It was epic.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, dude.
Um, yeah. I have been really appreciative of the different perspectives of the people in the corner. And even though, oh, you had asked me, you said how I liked the North Estuary thing, and I'd say the thing that surprised me was just how Christian it was. And I didn't know if you had a because you could probably compare it to some of your other experiences. Did it seem more Christian than other experiences that you had had, or not?
Well, it was definitely less orthodox than the symbolic world.
Sure, sure.
Um,
But even maybe the reason that maybe it surprised me was something that I had had in my mind of what estuary was, and this whole saltwater freshwater mix, and whatever the metaphor,
thought there'd be more salt.
or what, yeah, whichever side the salt is it the salt and light, or is it the impurity of the non-believers? So yeah.
Yeah, I knew I it was as Christian as I expected this one to be.
Yeah,
Um,
I didn't dislike it. I just was surprised by it.
but as far as but it's like Christian in the way Christ wants you to treat people way of
Mm.
Christian, not as an explicitly pick a faith and settle down. I mean, I don't know, someone going up there and talking about how God has worked in their life doesn't make it Christian to me.
No.
It could be anything.
No, it's I mean, and this you did ask why I created the channel, and it's it was a way for me to understand why I'm still attracted to church, and what I mean when I say church, and why the coffee shop doesn't necessarily scratch that itch. But then why, when I go to an existing church right now, that doesn't quite fit either. And then there's something, kind of alive for me, at least, in this corner where we are having discussions about what might be, and are you a liar if you say you really know the truth, and but are you being honest if you share with me what um, your perspective is on what you're experiencing, and can we actually have experiences together?
Oh, we're gonna. Um, like as far as Christianity goes, we're getting to the kind of Christianity I admire, which is where the lions and the feeding too happens.
Mm,
It looks like because like they're burning churches in, especially in Canada and stuff, all over the world. They're like they're taking out the churches. It's opposed to the acceptance necessary for the one world religion, I think.
mm,
But uh, so this is like those like I've visited a church a couple times in the last couple of years, and they're still playing the our denomination is better than their denomination game,
yeah.
and not even pointing outward at the men and women trapped in the men trapped in video games and the women trapped on Instagram.
Mm,
So it's like I don't. The churches are a good place to love people who love God, and that's good
mm.
for your soul. Like
Well, and that's what Jordan Hall seems to have found.
so,
And you talked to him as well, right?
I did have a Jordan Call conversation.
And
I came
how
at him pretty hard. I came at
yeah,
him.
how have you I remember watching that, and it was after I had talked to him. And what's your I don't know, ask what your relationship is like with him, but like, what is your assessment? Hey, my cat that goes like weeks at a time, sometimes without showing back up, has just decided to make an appearance. This
What
is
is
Gracie.
Gracie? Perfect. Yes, but by Gracie.
Yeah,
But by Gracie.
she likes you. She's locked in. That's
What's
kind of
up, man?
hilarious. Yeah, I have not seen this cat in over a week, and just heard my voice bellowing through the neighborhood, perhaps.
We got one inside. Kiki
Yeah,
Kiki Tron.
that's how you keep them from getting away, is you just don't let them out.
Um, he when the man went on Benjamin Boyce and
Uh-huh.
said things that made it sound to me like the government contracts with him, and so that's like uh, the the strata, the on opposite. That's the polarity of the meeting of him and I
Sure.
on even over Zoom is intense.
Well, and he's, I was supposed to meet him in person about a week and a half ago. Like the day of the trip is when Hurricane Helene um, basically unleashed on North Carolina, and then specifically like his area, his community. And so he has been him and his church community have been, tested, trial by flood, of how they, respond to this, in more than just like, hey, here's our propositions, here's the way that we sing the same songs, we enjoy spending time with each other. Now it's like, how do we actually love each other in these ways, to where some have more able bodies, more resources, others have greater needs. And from what I can tell so far, he's been up to the task.
I think given the nature of the environment, the plane of existence in which we're interacting at the moment, the best thing to do with Jordan Hall and his Christianity is contrast it with Russell Brand and his Christianity. And
Literally, this is the conversation my wife and I had this morning as we were hiking. Is that, and I shouldn't throw stones, but gosh, yeah, you and I are on some sort of same page right now, though, because it's like Russell Brand seems to be, his brand, if you will, his what he does is about himself and about being interesting. And he needs you to, I don't know if he has a Patreon, or if he still has that private, his grift is everywhere, but he doesn't call it a grift, and he needs to keep pumping out the content machine. Whereas I don't know if Jordan Hall has uploaded a YouTube video in the last 3 years.
if there was a playlist though of channels he's made the rounds of,
Yeah.
right?
But it's this thing where, to my knowledge at least, he's not seeking any of it out. His whole conversion experience was months before he happened to have dinner with Daniel Thorsten, who has his own podcast, and he's like, wait, you're a Christian now? Does anyone else know this? Can we talk about it on the podcast? Like, everything that Jordan has been doing has been like the opposite of, hey, look at me, here's my platform that I want to get on. And I don't know, I respect that. So if he's playing a real deep mind game, then he's got me in that tractor beam.
I think it's more he's inviting us into the story of his conversion, now including a hurricane. But like, since he's offered himself up to the Lord, perhaps the Lord will make use of him.
Yeah. Well, and what he has told me is that if someone asks to talk to him, it is a matter of prayer, and he just prays and feels or doesn't whether he should accept it.
And apparently, Grimgriz made that cut. See it now,
Me
ladies.
too, man.
Hey, 10. The 10 of
Hey,
diamonds is the casino deck card of the show.
10-10.
So do you see this as a thing taking off? Like Clara's studying us as a sociological thing. Is this now that you've been estuary deep, is there something to the something?
Some days I really think so. Some days I really think so. I think for me, I'm always comparing estuary to church. And when you talk about the couple times you popped into a church and they're still playing that same game, part of what makes my estuary experiences so far valuable is that we're not gathering to focus on any one thing. It's not like a Bible study. It's not, hey, we're here to be under this banner or this cross or this denomination or whatever, and we kind of all know what we're pointing towards. It's like we're in a circle, we're on a table, and we don't know what's in the middle of it until we put ourselves in the middle of it. And to the extent that that's honest or dishonest is how much value or experience of value might come out of it. And so when we have our estuary meetings, that reliably does happen. And a lot of the folks who've been attracted to estuary are folks that have found themselves adrift in some way from church.
How'd you
Sometimes
do
church
marketing?
and God, sometimes just church.
How'd you do your estuary marketing? Did you just do the coffee shops?
One-on-one. No, just these are just people that I may have had a one-on-one conversation with, like at a coffee shop, to where I sort of knew where they were at and knew that they would, or suspected they might be open to a conversation like that, and then invited them. And so I was sort of the hub of the spokes to all the people at the beginning, and then how we've grown it slowly has just still been a one. You're allowed to invite only one person max to a meeting. Each person's allowed to invite only one person, and we haven't like taken out a billboard or something like that. We're somewhat protective of the dynamics. Now, do you have anything like this in your community?
No, I don't.
Do you have any desire to see it like that? How many estuary meetings have you experienced at this point?
Well, if you count each one at the conference, right, that's like 5 for that meeting.
That was a lot.
There was like 4 or 5 at Chino, but the only desire I've had to do one here is to get like a representative from each of the 47 or so churches in town,
Mm.
and teach them like a way to connect with people that's not through the brand.
Mm.
Um,
Like, would that be like interfaith or mostly exclusively Christian churches?
um, yeah, pretty. I don't know that there might be one that's not, but I'm
Mm.
not aware of it. These are all like, I guess because of when the land was settled, there was hot interdenominational tent revival competitions, and we got Presbyterians, Baptists, Catholics, a lot of Pentecostals. There's, it's all the flavors.
Mm.
One big, and just I think the estuary protocol like um, is something to get. It's a shame. It's like first there was the war on personal freedom, and now we've escalated into the war on human contact. And
Mm.
it's sad that we need to find excuses to talk to each other again,
Mm.
and put the screens down and look at another human being.
Sure.
And that this is one is great. But I actually wrote on potential topics for this thing is what we've lost and coming of age.
Mm.
It's because you and I are both about the same age, which means we were born in the unique timeline of seeing the rise of the internet and experiencing what was before the internet
Mm.
enough to remember it a little bit.
Sure.
And people born after us will have like what we've lost of that Um, it's like why the Stranger Things nostalgia hit so hard, right? It's because that time period right before everything was lost, and what.
Yeah.
And so, what do you remember from, say, 15 to 22
Hmm.
that we don't have anymore?
Hmm. What immediately came to mind is music. I remember. So this is a weird way to answer this, or maybe it's not weird, but because we all have like Spotify and YouTube to just sort of curate our own sort of playlists. I don't know if people still listen to the radio, but even like in so I grew up in the Phoenix area where we were in close enough to California to constantly be toured at from the like Christian rock, punk, ska
What? What?
world.
Everybody.
Oh yeah, so that's what I remember and miss. It was like there was like a scene. It wasn't, hey, are you listening to this obscure, artist from Norway? You wouldn't even think to ask somebody that question. You just knew that they weren't. You might be like, hey, listen to this obscure artist from Norway, please. I'm sure that you haven't heard them. There was a little bit more of a, hey, are you going to the MXPX concert, on Saturday? And there was like a scene that we were involved in. And when a album would come out, it would be like, okay, are you going to get the new Plank Eye album? And we all sort of shared an experience of having limited access to music at the same time.
For me, it was like the Clicks had soundtracks or anthems, right?
Like in school and stuff.
Yeah,
Musically, yeah.
like they would align by music type and shared music genre, and I don't know that happens anymore. I
Yeah,
miss.
that's and maybe some stuff with TV. I know that you've talked about set,
Yes.
and I did enjoy uh, Lost, which is not in the time period that you're talking about, but I feel like that was one of the last shows to where sort of a lot of society was sort of kind of watching it, at least on TV live, and then discussing it maybe the next day. I don't know how much of that happens
The
anymore.
end of the Office Cooler show.
Yeah, something like that. So
Uh,
I gave you two media examples. That's where my brain went, but I don't know if you have different examples or want to take it in a different direction.
no, I just want to point to the topic and
Yeah.
to the people of our generation that like the estuary thing is a revivification of something we've lost. Like I don't know, the Flintstones indicated to me that the men of society used to have a lodge where they do this sort of thing,
Mm.
or if not in church, then at the lodge. And I that's the coming of age part is the other thing I wanted to get to. Do you feel you had a coming of age ritual?
Hmm. No. My mom was probably the stronger. I mean, she definitely was the stronger force in my parental unit. My parents were and are still married, so that might have been some of it. And then I got kind of pulled into the church scene around that time. Like I got really into church. Like that was like my hobby. Um, and so a little bit of my coming of age was self-directed through that, and or
Like
seeking
trying to
out.
be a good Christian man?
I don't even know if I would have added man to it. Maybe just it was like it was almost like the man part wasn't even as important as just being a good Christian. What does God want for me? Like that was the most important thing. Um, and believing the right things was probably the most important part of that. Although making sure that you didn't, have sex and drink alcohol and, smoke cigarettes.
Right.
You wouldn't want to do any of those things, but you want to make sure
Well,
that you did
corrupting the
do them for
temple
the
is a
right
bad
reason.
idea.
Yeah.
Corrupting the temple is a bad idea. What? No, no.
It was a way to, I don't know, signal to myself and others that I'd found something and they could maybe find it too, or at least that's what I believed at that time.
The shared media aspect of what we lost isn't off, but I want to lean on this coming of age thing because I have this thing called the God Mask,
Okay.
which is derivative of paintball for Jesus.
Now that was one that I was like aware of and didn't quite understand. So I'm listening. I'm intrigued.
Okay, well, paintball for Jesus is there's empty churches with no youth in them,
Mm,
and there's this thing called paintball, which is the closest I've experienced to the thrill of Overwatch,
gotcha.
the flow state and excitement of team combat. And I thought it would be a great idea if a bunch of people who love Jesus were also skilled in urban combat.
Mm,
And so the notion came to me that if a church would sponsor a paintball team, if the players just maintained their church attendance, that it would probably develop, if it was league play and tournament play, that it would probably develop the sort of community spirit that high school football
mm,
does in this region. Because like my kids playing, so I'll go to that church too, and that would revivify that, as well as rescue otherwise lost to video games children
mm,
into their bodies again.
mm.
And
Yeah,
so,
yeah, yeah.
but the whole notion of a league of Baptists shooting the Presbyterians and that um, is paintball for Jesus, and then the God Mask comes as a rite of passage ritual
Okay.
where like one guy gets strung up and shot with all the paintballs and then tossed into a cave and presented with the God Mask, which has 4 phrases on it, which I feel encapsulate the world I found myself incarnated into and that I would pass on to a youth. And they are first, this is a PvP server
Okay.
because, like, they'll be familiar enough with non PvP and from the video gamings to know. And then the beast takes what it wants and gets what it gets. And that's, I like the fish hook metaphor. Like, the fish might see the glimmer of the hook, but he can't fight the impulse. He's going to bite
Mm,
the hook anyway. And man protects the sacred,
mm,
and you're part of it now.
mm.
Which I don't. That's the part I think that is missing from our society as far as initiation rituals go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is
Mm.
I don't know why I wanted to sell that to you, but I did.
No, no, no. It was helpful because as you asked me, and I think back to it and realized that I didn't have it, and now I've got my own son who's 20, and I don't know how much of it I was able to provide for him either. Um, some of that was due to divorce and custody things, to where it just didn't have the access to him, I guess. Um, and then I'm recognizing that I did have a season. I'm kind of still in it, about 3-4 years ago, of getting into men's retreats, and whether it's a did you call it coming of age? What was the phrase you used?
Yeah,
Coming of age. It's been in my 40s that I've felt this sort of like loss or a lack of focused masculine responsibility, and now everything goes back to Jordan Peterson, right? um
he
so
did
rebel
point to
wisdom
it well, right?
was the British um um message that was sent to me, where I could really kind of dive in on some of these Jordan Peterson things. And that's how I found out about Jordan Hall. And they had previously to the pandemic had men's retreats. Did you ever watch the Rebel Wisdom stuff? back in the day when it's still alive, or?
I am currently trying to rescue from a hard drive a video collage I made of Jamie Wheel's appearance with
Oh,
them.
Jamie Wheel has had, I don't know, 10. Jamie Wheel launched his book from Recapture the Rapture on Rebel Wisdom, like it was a whole live thing. I've got a whole Jamie Wheel like part of my life as well. But in fact, you brought up Jamie Wheel, so let's go there. So he had his grift involves a 1 week off the grid canyon adventure. And so I was feeling this need to, get off of this, screen mediated relationship stuff. It's like, I want to get in the flesh with some people. So he has this thing, I sign up and I go to it and I meet him and hike with him. And I remember feeling towards the end a couple of different things, but the one that's tied to this conversation is there was this Navy SEAL who was like the co-leader, just a big, strong, brick shithouse of a man. And like told us stories about how a lot of, guys in his platoon had died. And like he's been through real shit. And I really liked him. And yet what I wanted to do was wrestle him and get crushed by him. Like I remember feeling like I knew I wanted to be in the same geographical space with Jamie Wheel and these folks that were maybe sort of aligned with him somehow. But then I really wanted to wrestle somebody. Didn't happen. I didn't mention it to anybody. And then I realized that that's what I wanted when I went to the Rebel Wisdom men's retreat, maybe 4 months later in England. And part of that was this experience to where, I don't know, there's probably like 25 men and they've got like tribal music playing and stuff. You're imagining it. We got our shirts off. I mean, it's that kind of thing. And there's like an MC who's saying like, okay, now make eye contact with the next man that you see. So we're like all sort of streaming in and out of each other. And then we make eye contact. All right, now stop that man. All right, now put your hands on his shoulders. And so you're both put your hands on his shoulders like, all right, now let him know that you're here and let out the aggression that, has been building in your gut and just let him have it. And you're sort of pushing, but you don't want to knock him down. And like, there's this very intense, gosh, I'm getting pumped up just remembering it. And I really needed that. It was probably the most, that's probably the biggest takeaway from that retreat was how important that thing that probably happened with our ancestors a lot more than it does with us.
Oh yeah.
I mean, jujitsu is like a big deal, and I thought, oh, maybe I need to get into jujitsu with Joe Rogan and all these people, and yeah, I went to
like
one.
The man versus nature thing.
Mm.
We've separated too much. Like we've separated the idea of ourselves like too far from our own nature and disconnected a lot of things.
Well, and even I would even say it more specifically of the man versus man kind of thing. Like it was helpful for me to get pushed around. Like I got paired up with some big strong guys that, like, the first guy I got paired up with, I could physically sort of outmatch him, and I was just more intense than him. I was like, okay, if there's a winner, I won. The second guy, he had a Krav Maga shirt. Do you know what Krav Maga is?
That's like the breakdancing combat.
I don't know what it is, but it's definitely combat, right? I was like, okay, this guy could probably kill me. And I could tell that he was kind of toying with me. He was holding himself back, but he could meet, and if he wanted to, exceed my level. And then the third guy was the biggest guy there, huge beard. He's like 6'6". I'm 6'2". He is just a beast. And I'm trying to like shake him and let him have it. I'm yelling at him, letting it all out. And he's just stone-faced, stoic. He was not taking any of it. And then we debriefed at the end of it. He's like, hey, I'm sorry to the guys that I was paired up with, but I couldn't let myself get into that mode. He's like, for a lot of you guys, this is like the only time or the first time you've let that level of aggression out. He's like, that is just under the surface for me all the time. And I've seen it get out of control. I've experienced it getting out of control, and I can't let myself go there safely if I'm really going to go there.
I'd need an actual bear to let
Yeah.
mine out of the cage. But thanks, guys.
That was kind of like, yeah, all of you, measly humans, would not be a large enough challenge. But I believe it. I mean,
Right.
this guy had that kind of power with him. So I don't know. I thought it was good for me to be reminded of my limitations in such an immediate way.
I think one of the benefits I've had is most of the events when it's possible, I'll camp.
Mm.
And like the low level of comfort, um, deprivation is enough to remind me of the world we actually live in, despite how much time we spend in these digital planes of existence.
Well, and that was the Jamie Wheel part as well. Was like, you know what? Because he's got a little bit of a doomer, sort of prepper kind of side to him. Like, people who are attracted to him, there are some that are attracted to the sort of flow states and psychedelics and sort of, tuning up your body into these states of ecstasy and rapture. And then there are other people who are like, we need to survive for when the shit hits the fan, and
Well,
show us how to,
it's a cycle, you know.
yeah,
First the rapture, then oh shit, we need to survive.
yeah.
We're not starting out at oh shit, we need to survive, thanks to the cultural programming.
Well, and so what drew me to him was more of his sort of religious stuff. I'm curious what or did something draw you to Jamie Wheel? What's been your experience with him and
He
his
said welcome to the Illuminati in that talk when he was talking about setting up that retreat. And in the front of it, he said, we know the secrets to the universe. You do this, this, and that with your vagus nerve. And
Mhm.
so I had clipped all that out real nice. But that he was somebody that was working with, like, he speaks, comes from, can deal with the corporate layer. And,
Sure.
and the same way that Jordan Hall plays at layers that
Yeah.
I have no access to. And so those things and how those people operate is always fascinating to me from down here.
Have you seen conversations with the two of them together?
Probably, I saw a four-way with Schmacky in there, I think.
Yeah. It could have been a three-way conversation with the fourth being you on the camera. Were they on a couch?
Yeah, it might have been, right?
Yeah, I've watched that conversation like at least 4 times, like a 3-hour conversation. I've watched at least 4 or 5 times, and what they get into there about, the existence of God or religion, no way to understand it, was always something that helped me realize that I wasn't thinking deeply enough, or there are at least others that are thinking about it even more deeply. And so when Jordan became a Christian, I just immediately remembered back to that. And I was like, wait, a guy who's this smart, who can think this deep, is all in on this thing that I rejected 20 years ago? Okay, what did I miss here? Let me sort of go back and see if I can find what he has found.
Was that the first ting or dart in your atheist cloak?
It's at least a significant one. And the maybe even stranger part was, it was like I'd already committed to do the YouTube channel before that happened. And I committed to the YouTube channel, and then, like, literally the night before Lent was supposed to start, was it Ash Wednesday? Mardi Gras, whatever.
Yeah.
Fat Tuesday. I was looking on Twitter and I found this guy who was talking about atheism for Lent. And I interpret that as giving up atheism for Lent. Everyone's giving up something unique. So I said, okay, I'm going to give up atheism for Lent. And I did not know what that meant. And then I think my call with him was on a Friday. So it was like 2 days later. And then while I'm on this call with him, and I tell him as much of my story as I can that's appropriate, and that I am an atheist and blah, blah, blah. But I still am encouraged and intrigued by his conversion. And then he asks me to pray. He specifically, actually, I think I may have shared this. Let's just go ahead and share it now. He specifically asked me to pray for Jamie Wheel.
What a coincidence! This guy. Yeah.
And so, and I was like, okay, because he heard in me a love and respect for Jamie in my recapitulation of sort of my story of how I came to respect him, Jordan, my pronouns and people, right? And so at the end of the call, I was like, hey, man, this has been great. I really appreciate your time. He's like, can I just ask one thing? Will you pray for Jamie? And I was like, I don't pray. Then, oh, wait, I've given up atheism for Lent. So I guess, okay, so I can. And it wasn't one of these things where it was like, let's say I was talking to Russell Brand. Russell Brand might have said like, okay, put your hand up next to the camera and, we will, lay hands on each other, let's make sure that the audio levels are good, it was like, okay, I'm going to hang up and I may or may not do it was sort of how we ended it. But I was by myself in the office that you just showed. And I did. And it was, for whatever reason, more earnest maybe than I had in a while. And it was less of like, hey, God, if you're real, show me, or something like that. And it was more like, and I don't know what's going on in Jamie's life. I don't need to know. But if you're there and you do know, I just want your light to shine on him. That was it. But instead of me feeling like before, I was like, oh, maybe there's nobody listening to that. I kind of at that point felt that maybe somebody did. The Jordan Hall, juice had seeped in. And then I felt led immediately to pray for somebody else.
That's interesting, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, that feeling was led.
Yeah. Right. I was like, that was good. And here's somebody else. And I think it was kind of going back to that whole, this isn't a self-serving thing. What's the harm? I'm not, going around, saying like, hey, I prayed for you and I need you to respond in a certain way. Like it was just this private thing, but then somehow also connected and collected with another person. And then it's started a sort of prayer relationship with Jordan, which has now expanded into fasting. So you fast during Lent, and
right?
So we would,
right?
Yeah. So we would fast together on Fridays during Lent, and send each other like little messages of like, hey, you know what, I'm doing it today. We're brothers in arms or whatever. And then Lent ended, and we're like, you want to keep it going? Okay. And so we kept it going until I fell off the wagon about a month ago. And I messaged him and he's like, nope, I'm still going strong. In fact, I'm doing it on Wednesdays and Fridays now. I was like, oh shit. Okay. And that did encourage me. And so I'm back on it. I added Wednesdays as well. So I don't know what to make of that. Like, is if that's the way, as we were talking about before, or it's encouraging to know that somebody else is on the same way as me.
Right.
And as you described your agnosticism, that rings true to me of like, everybody else must be lying because nobody really knows, including Jordan. But this does seem to be a source of life. There's
everlasting water,
of
life more abundantly, perhaps.
Yeah. Sharing in the suffering of Christ, and now sharing in the suffering of his community. And oddly, I've been sitting here, seeing all the news of the flooding and stuff, and it's like I have a weird wanting to suffer with them. And maybe that's one of the root words of compassion, like to suffer with. It's like, how can I share in their suffering or share
Like that's really heavy. Can I carry a piece?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to do this on your own. And I'm like, hey, I know that you guys have gotten, maybe there are people who volunteered to show up in person, donate money, donate specific supplies, prayer. Like, what do you need? And he's like, honestly, someone yesterday just said that they've been working around the clock and they just don't have access to any good coffee.
Right.
You hook us up with some coffee. And so we sent them like 10 pounds of coffee yesterday, and that was what was asked. And so feels appropriate to respond in that way. That's that's my grift.
It's good. It's good. Dude, dude, yeah. No, I don't know. Let's.
Well, I feel like I've been talking too much. I want to know a little more about your plans for, or your hopes maybe for what you're doing here, and what the TLC or estuary or wherever you want to take that. How do you see the future and your role to play?
Well, what I've been trying to do is train lobster monkeys to,
Point to the shirt.
like these guys, hey, to make clips and collages of things. Like you said, you watched that particular conversation with Wheel and stuff 3 times. Like the nugget version, the condensed nugget version, the distillate is a product I was hoping to turn the Discord into like a paper street soap company that produces those sorts of things. But mainly my service is to create the space on the live streams for people that otherwise won't leave their house to have something of a shared participatory experience with cards and savings throws. Where
Is
do I see it going?
Yeah, is there, and even maybe double clicking on that, is there a desire for you to have some more of these in-person things that you get to lead, or significantly contribute to, like the paintball for Jesus?
Yes. Ideally, I would be traveling the country selling that to churches to like
Mm,
get on board, play. But
mm,
uh, this I don't know this digital amphibians that we are, that thing. Ideally, I like to be doing mission work where we get more kids off of games before it eats their lives. So,
you said games, right? Not gangs.
it, yes, I did.
Get kids off of games.
The ones that are in gangs, or at least out there in the real world, physically embodied, making a difference, and not just siphoning their best attention and years into Skinner boxes.
Mm,
So,
mm,
to the extent I can help with that, I'd like to point that way.
mm,
I think estuaries can do that. I think estuaries could become as close to like I don't know, an parallel society
mm,
to the NPC narrative that one has to live by in the other world, with
mm,
the oncoming social credit score and money that can get turned off for not thinking right.
mm,
It's I don't know. We're sliding into dark times. The more people get together, at least they're not alone in that darkness.
mm, mm. Yeah, no, I'm definitely like thinking of the folks in uh again, as we're recording this, and when people listen to it, it'll be different. But there's like another huge hurricane, hitting people in Florida right now, and the folks still reeling from the actual darkness because they have no power, no water in North Carolina, and how that's just resulted in um, these people coming together and taking care of each other. And our community, Evansville, Indiana, when you ask people like what is special about Evansville? What are you guys known for? Like, the only thing that people ever come back to is during World War II, when our community was called upon to do what they can for the war effort. It just came alive, and businesses transitioned from making cars and refrigerators to tanks and jets and bullets, and anyone who had a room turned it into a place for employees to sleep who were working at these munitions plants or wherever else. And the tragedy of the war gave purpose to our community, and we've been kind of aimlessly, sleepily limping forward ever since. And I've always suspected, in a kind of grim way, that we need another sort of shared catastrophe to come alive again.
Well, those are coming.
I'm in luck.
In luck, but I don't know. I'm glad I got to live during the time of running toilets.
Sure. Well, and if you really need to get prep for all that stuff, Jamie's still doing his courses that you can get on board with that.
It might be worthwhile. All right, let's end this now, Zach.
Okay. All right. Thanks, man. This is good. Cheers.